Well, on E1, the presentation topic of the resource fair is a great idea. So I would greatly support that. And I would furthermore encourage CAC to outreach to everybody and make it open to everyone. At past presentations like the Life After High School, a lot of vendors told me, like private providers, that they knew nothing about it, and it's usually the same group of people. And I've also made comments in the past that if WESELPA is going to advertise it for one group, such as Open Doors, that it also be available to other groups, such as Educate Advocate. In the past, we've seen that WESELPA has advertised events and promoted events for Open Doors, which is another nonprofit. And even though Educate Advocate has made requests, they have not been accepted. So I would say if you're going to do it for one, do it for all. And also, in the interest of equity, make the resource fair available to everybody in the community, not just cherry picking, because some groups may have a different perspective than the WESELPA. But I think that's what this group is all about, to take different perspectives, not just one perspective. So that's my comment on E1. And then, what was the other one, Martina?
E3 and E4.
Okay. I don't know. I haven't seen the parent handbook, so on E4, I'm not sure what comments to provide, other than anything that can get some information into the hands of parents is a good idea. Promoting community involvement, again, I think we can do a lot to outreach to parents. I certainly do. And the resource fair is a great idea. They've been very successful in the past. But also consider having presentations, if you're going to have a presentation from different providers in the area, like non-public schools, like reading programs. There's Linda Mood-Bell, there's Hope Inc., that's right here, to open that up for parents. And I understand, there may be somewhat of a conflict of interest, because you don't want WESELPA in a position to be pushing one agency and marketing for one agency versus another. But if it could be like a general presentation about services available, you kind of do that with a resource fair. You give the vendors a little bit of opportunity to talk about themselves. But definitely, if there's a way for WESELPA to send out emails about the CAC, or even once a year, because I know there's probably a mailing cost, once a year to parents to outreach and mail them the CAC brochure for the rest of the year. Because the model that we've had in the past of putting it in the backpack for the kids to take home, that has not been successful. Either something falls between the cracks and the flyer doesn't get from the principal's office to the classroom, or, when you put something in a kid's backpack, you're really taking your chances. So it has not, from comments that we've all made before, and from parents that have said that they were in the system for 11 years and they were really engaged. These were not parents that were not engaged and involved in their kids' education, and they didn't even know about the existence of CAC for 11 years. We've had those comments in the past. So I think, as Einstein said, I get 9 minutes because it's 3 per item.
4 minutes.
So I get 9 because I had 3 items, and it's 3 minutes per agenda item.
It's 4 minutes per agenda item, and not to exceed 20 minutes. I think it's somewhere in the...
Oh, okay. So I was planning on 9, so I get extra. Great. But I'll make it quick. So, as Einstein said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And that's what we've been doing. We're saying, we don't have enough participation in the CAC. We have limited participation, but we make the meetings at a time when parents, can't necessarily attend. And also, because most parents work. Most parents on this committee do work. And we also don't get the flyer into the hands of the parents. So I think that needs to be, rethought. And then another thing to promote community involvement is rather than having a public comment card where you have to specify all the agenda items and take input from the public before the public has a chance to hear the presentation. I mean, we're kind of, operating in the dark. Because we don't get an email of the agenda other than the one we get from Martina, thank you, Martina, for doing that. We don't get an email on the agenda. We don't really see it on the website until last minute, and I understand it's a 72-hour notice per the Brown Act. We don't see past agendas on the website. So really, we're really at a disadvantage. We have to come in on the fly to provide these comments. And the whole point of a CAC, the Education Code, mandates a CAC so that we could have an active voice into the operations of the West End SELPA. And we can't really do that with the limited information we get. So,
Let me
thank you.
borrow about 30 seconds of your time. It says right here, comments on agenda items by visitors will be heard after the CAC members discuss the item and prior to the vote. So in fact, it's already in place that agenda items are supposed to be commented on after the CAC members have all talked about it. And so it's a great idea just to implement that thing. I don't want to argue with what's already been decided when it's already good. So why don't we comment on the agenda items after you guys have all discussed them? Just like it says
okay.
here.
Yeah, and I know Dr. Thomas always does that, so you're right.
Thank you, Mr. Atwood.
You're welcome, Mrs. Lou.
Yeah.
One of the items, the first item is in regard to the 2011-12 expat rate, and we had kind of took a look at the possibility of making some changes to the expat. And kind of to give you some background, the expat is money that each district contributes to kind of a risk pool. So this money is coming, it's not SELPA money, it's coming from the districts, and the amount of money each district contributes is the rate times the district's average daily attendance. So a larger district would contribute more than a smaller district. And the expat historically has been used to pay for a portion of non-public school or non-public agency expenses, as well as due process expenses. And the thought is that, particularly because we have some very small elementary school districts, this is kind of like a self-insurance pool in case a particular district would have an unexpectedly large number of non-public school placements, or very high-cost non-public school placements, or a due process which they, clearly couldn't, can't predict. And so, this has historically been what the SELPA did. There had been a study by the FICMAT, which is an agency that comes in and looks at educational entities, and they have made a recommendation that we should reevaluate the use of the expat. In particular, they indicated that they felt non-public school placements really aren't that unexpected, and that districts should pay 100% of those, and then they felt that there should be some adjustments made to kind of the insurance concept related to due process, so that you only had maybe insurance up to a certain amount, and then after that, so any one district couldn't use up the whole amount. And so there were some committees formed, and they discussed this, and so there was a proposal brought to the Superintendent's Council to make some changes to the expat procedure. One was to move to 100% reimbursement by the district for their non-public school. Currently, the district pays 70% and the expat pays 30%. And we had looked over, and in part, because it is a district-by-district decision to place a child there, and also because there hasn't been a lot of disparity in the numbers of placements. I mean, they're pretty steady. So, and so that proposal was brought forward, and the superintendents, I think, given the current economic climate, because there is so much unknown, particularly when we're talking about last May, plus on an ongoing basis, even our current budgets going forward provide a lot of unknowns. The superintendents really weren't willing to make any changes there. There was, the committee did not recommend any significant changes to the due process use of the XPOT other than to add alternative dispute resolution so that districts could get access to the XPOT. We're trying to resolve disputes at an earlier point in time. Unfortunately, the item was presented as a single item, so because the non-public school component was not approved, the item failed. So we're going to go back and continue to look at some of the FICMAT recommendations. The XPOT rate determination, if we looked at doing nothing and just continuing with our current reimbursement schedule, because as a CELPA, the districts have lost enrollment, the amount of money that needed to be contributed would have gone up. And this would have been a real hardship for districts at this time. And so Catalina Flores, our fiscal analyst, took a look at our expenses for the past, all the way back to 0203, and realized that each year we had been returning money back to districts. And so what we did was go ahead and take a look at reducing our projected expenditures. And so we ended up maintaining the XPOT rate at $28.40 per ADA. So that even though there's been a decline in enrollment, the cost will remain the same for the districts. So on the mental health services piece, basically as of July 1st, 2011, school districts now have the sole responsibility for educationally related mental health services. These services, at least for students who are eligible under IDEA, these services in the past have been provided in large part by Department of Behavioral Health through a program that was known as AB 3632 or AB 2726. And so currently with our new budget, Assembly Bill 114, and repealed this whole state mandate and eliminated all reference to those government code sections. Here in San Bernardino County, our Department of Behavioral Health last January pretty much said, we're done, we're not going to do this anymore. And so our schools, for a large part, have taken on that responsibility. And so at this time, the West End CELPA will continue to provide mental health services for our member districts through our CELPA clinical counseling program. We have 9 counselors licensed, either NFTs or LCSWs, who provide services. And also we have a contract with West End Family Counseling, where we can provide services. Part of the budget bill provided money from Prop 63 to continue to go to Department of Behavioral Health to aid with this transition. And so we're in discussion with our Department of Behavioral Health, and there has to be an MOU in place for them to access this money. And so they have recommended that the MOU provide for services through clinics, community-based clinics that they already have some existing relationships with. I know last year we were able to access services through Pacific Clinics and South Coast Clinics as well. And so they're proposing the money be used for that, as well as for the mental health services related to residential placements. So we'll need to continue to work on that MOU, but that looks like the direction it's taking. Also, we want to really take a chance to take a look at the shift in responsibility for educationally related mental health services and look at designing more of a continuum of services that would support students in our county. There were certain types of treatment services that our Department of Behavioral Health really didn't support conceptually, so there's never been an opportunity for day treatment services because of the way the Department of Behavioral Health structured their funding. There was very limited opportunity for family counseling services, and very often any students with autism were automatically excluded from services. So we want to take a look at, not necessarily just taking the place of Department of Behavioral Health, but perhaps being able to develop a more robust array of services and really try to look at a whole continuum of how we can support students in their educational environments. So we'll be probably talking at our program meetings and bringing recommendations forward to our superintendents on this issue. And then this year will be our self-review year. Every 4 years, each SELPA is on a 4-year cycle for special education self-review. Now, if you think, no, it hasn't been 4 years since our last one, you're right. CDE got a little behind, and so they have been trying to catch up, and they've been doing them a little faster. At this time, the 10-11 group, their software just came out. They're hoping to finish them up, and so we will be starting it sometime during this school year. Usually you do it over the whole school year, but the first part of that self-review and the real kind of cornerstone of that is a parent input, and that's done in 2 ways. Each district will hold a parent input meeting, and if at that parent input meeting they don't get a certain number of participants, and it's usually not likely to get as many participants, and they will also be sending out a parent survey. So kind of go ahead and look for that. Most districts last year got very high returns on their parent surveys and far exceeded what was required. But this is a really good way for parents to provide input on special education services in their districts. And that input then is used to develop the monitoring plan. So all of that input goes into where the focus will be for the self-review based on